Okay, I want to look back on The Princess Diaries because I grew up with the first movie. I've always loved the first movie. I have really strong memories of watching it when I started community college because when I started community college, I had just finished being homeschooled for 4 years and I never got my license in that period of time and I didn't have any friends. So movies were sort of my like living vicariously, my confidence was very low. All of everything that could be positive about your life up here was very low because I didn't have any external influence to sort of balance it out and let me know like where I stood in life. And I remember very strongly watching it, like, I think almost at the beginning of finals week. And the one scene, I remember I recorded a few pieces of the wisdom from it and kept them on my phone because it was just very helpful for me to look at when I was feeling down or feeling less confident in myself. And I specifically remember the scene where she's sitting in her car crying, and it starts with William Tell Overture.
You wouldn't happen to be running away, would you?
What? Dressed like this? No, I'm going to a ball.
And then Joe shows up and it's the Princess Diaries theme, and that just makes me cry every time I watch it. It feels so powerful. Then in 2022, which to this day is the worst year of my life, I remember the quote from Eleanor Roosevelt.
But you should know that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Eleanor Roosevelt said that.
Yes. Another special lady like yourself.
I made that the home screen for my phone for like a year, and that was very helpful to me. Although I am majoring in sociology now and I can sort of destroy that quote sociologically, but for this purpose, I still think it's very, very beautiful. I really just want to look through both movies. So I want to start with the first one that I have a lifetime of history with. For one, I just want to point out that, of course, I love that it's filmed in San Francisco. San Francisco is my favorite city in the world. I mean, obviously, I grew up here. I grew up enjoying it. And any film that's filmed in San Francisco, especially if it's something that's really cozy, like, for example, Mrs. Doubtfire as well, like, it's so warm in my heart, and the fact that they're giving such a beautiful city like this chance to be on film, it's so gorgeous. It literally makes me cry every time. Same with Full House. That's why I loved Full House so much growing up.
Taking me. Well,
For royalty to jingle.
okay, I'll get the change.
Oh, this one's my favorite. What you do is you put the quarter in, and then you grab his hand.
I'm being shown San Francisco by a true San Franciscan.
I always liked Doc Martens. I saw them for the first time in Shake It Up, but when I was deciding to get a pair of Docs when I was like 17, the ones that I chose, it wasn't the 1460s, like the high top ones. It was specifically the low top ones because they were the ones that Mia wore.
Casual.
The makeover scene, so when I was a kid, when I was growing up until age like 6, I had like ringlet curly hair. And I think I saw Princess Diaries for the first time when I was around like 5 or 6. And for some reason, when I was 6 until when I was like 9, I had like straight hair, like almost straight by the time I was like 10 to like, and I didn't realize until I cut my hair into like the 2013 like Miley Cyrus haircut when I was like 14 that I had curly hair. Suddenly it started curling because it was short and healthy, and it's been like ringlet curly ever since then. And I never really saw the makeover scene as like anti-curly hair until I would see people talking about that on Instagram and on social media, where I was like, oh shit, like I never thought of it as being like not only anti-curly hair, but also like in a way like anti-thick eyebrows. Like you can't live in your natural like self, like you're doing so much like body policing to look like feminine. I realize that now watching it.
Like this, and this, and give you
A princess.
Like I love her princess reveal, but yeah, I do see why that's like an issue. And I know a lot of 2000s movies had that makeover scene where it just is like, hey, straighten your hair, fuck your curly hair. Like, as if curly hair isn't pretty, you just have to style it like differently. But anyway, I digress. I feel like just in general, the whole story and wisdom itself is something that has deepened as I've gotten older and that I've just understood more and more. Like, I, as a kid, and like, even now can relate to, you know, her being so shy and just really wanting to like disappear in the background and not dressing up or doing anything glamorous, to where you get that extra attention because it's just like, I just want to like disappear and hide from that because it's just too stressful. It's too like, there's too much anxiety that's caused from it. But I think this first movie is written so well and so beautifully to show not only how it feels to be a teenager, any age really, but specifically a teenager that's in that mental state, but also to show naturally like how that can grow and the pitfalls that come along the way, because like that growth isn't just linear. There's so much to it. There's so much like ups and downs, and her having this support system and seeing how they just accepting her as she is, not pushing her too hard, like how that gives her this positive environment where she's able to make her own decision, in that she's able to grow at her own pace, and you don't have somebody who's like micromanaging her, which I think is in this situation, and if you imagine it in real life, I think that's kind of what would be imagined, is a very micromanaging situation of, this is your duty, this is what you have to do. I think one of the best parts of it is seeing the effect of a positive environment on her, and seeing somebody whose world is quite small and quite controlled. And by controlled, I mean how she really wants to be in the background. That makes her more comfortable. Like being in the center of attention makes her anxious, but because she's in the background and she's invisible, and she has this line where it's like, my goal in life is to be invisible and I'm good at it. Like, because you don't have these external stressors sort of in your face all the time and coming like unprovoked, like she's able to control so much of her emotional state by just sort of avoiding all of these like external things. And see, so that's what I mean by like someone whose world is small. It's basically her job, her mom, Lily, kind of Michael a little bit, and like going to school, but she's in the background of everything in school. She kind of just doesn't really get noticed. So watching someone's world expand throughout that and seeing them take on the challenge of sort of, I don't necessarily want to say a greater purpose, but a bigger purpose in their life, and like slowly just grow into themselves and become more comfortable with themselves. I think that's what's so fascinating about it, because when you are shy and anxious and just not comfortable like being perceived, it is very difficult. You know, taking risks is damn near impossible, because it's like it's too, like, you just don't feel like you're capable of it. You don't feel like you have it in you, and you feel like no matter what you do, you're gonna fail. And there's this line that Jo says where when she's like, how do I know if I would even be good being a princess?
How can I tell if I can do the job?
My husband is crying.
That's something that sort of passed over me like when I was like younger, but it's something where watching it now I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that's true. Like, it's the line between like where you are now and success, so often, even if you don't feel like you're ready to be there, you're not, you know, I feel like people often don't feel like they're ready for whatever the next challenge is that they want to do, or the next state in life. But literally simply just trying and putting yourself out there can make such a world of difference. I also really love how it focuses on roles, like the importance of roles, but also that you need differentiation between them, because there's one scene where it's talking about like, oh, as a queen, was I too harsh on her?
You're saying that as a queen, I was too harsh on her. I was critical of the person who could become the next ruler of my country.
I'm saying as a grandmother, you might have been too harsh on your granddaughter.
Like the way that they have to work on like separating these, about when one focuses on duty and one focuses on actual family and love. And I think that compartmentalization is incredibly interesting and incredibly real. There's so many little tidbits of wisdom like that I think are not only extremely healthy, where that's something like, just focused on the first movie right now, that's something that was so wonderful to watch about this, is that it ages so well because it genuinely, except Lily, she's a terrible friend, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Mia's journey. And it is such a healthy portrayal and story for her, you know? I think a lot of teen coming of age movies, you know, especially around that time where they're just like that category and market is just like imploding. Like there's so much coming out. It's becoming so oversaturated. And so many of them are really unhealthy, like, movies. Like they're not good pieces of advice. They're not good portrayals, because it's very much like a patriarchal, like, dominated story or idea, where it's like it may not be in your face, but it's a little bit more under the surface, like subconscious, whereas when you're a kid you may not spot it the same way. And so that goes in your mind and it creates this level of like internalized misogyny. It's bad, right? But this movie I feel like isn't that, and that's so beautiful. And in the first film, I also just want to point out, this is not a hot take. I think everyone agrees with this, that the romance between the Queen and Joe is so beautiful and so healthy. And also, we all know that there's an insane drought, great market for, but insane drought when it comes to like romance films for people who aren't teenagers or in their early 20s. Like literally any other age group, they're kind of just forgotten. And honestly, Hollywood can make a lot of fucking money if they actually just invested in that market. They're not. But like, this is such a beautiful portrayal of not only a romance, because I think a romance by definition can sound almost surface level, like you're romancing the other person. But within their relationship in this film, like they've worked together for so long. She's in this wonderful position of power. Her whole life has been a job. And he's honored to be able to protect her and be second in command and be there for her. And he knows, obviously, she's had kids. She had a husband before, and he's not threatened by any of that. He's not threatened by her mind, her job. He doesn't want her to quit her job. He doesn't want anything like that. And he also doesn't want her money. Like, he's not like, you need to be a maid, or I'm a gold digger trying to inherit, like, all this stuff. Like, he's genuinely a good person, and he just wants to, like, be in partnership and be, like, in a healthy team with her. And it's all out of, like, respect and care that he loves her. And that's something that I literally have not seen in, oh God, like, there are, especially with an older couple, like, my God, I don't even recall, actually, a movie that I've seen that in. It's hard enough for the Hollywood, like, spotlight on younger people for that to be healthy. Like, that's always bullshit. I fucking hate romance movies because it's always just shitty propaganda towards women. They're not fucking romantic if you really pick them apart. They may be pretty and the outfits are cute and the rooms are to die for. Like, also Mia's room is to die for. I just want to point that out. That shit's like multiple stories. Like, it's so cute. But you get my point. Also, getting back for a second to the makeover scene. When it says the, like, only Paolo can start with this and give you a princess. And it, like, has her, when everyone's left the room, she turns around and sort of looks at herself and is, like, in shock. Like, happy and impressed, but in shock. And I think she portrayed that so well, because I've seen that type of makeover scene in a lot of movies. And oftentimes it feels like the actor can't portray it well because it seems like in their facial expression and reaction when they turn around, it seems like they can't put themselves in the role of being so shy and almost anxious to be perceived and to have that attention on them, that like it just doesn't come off as real and natural. Whereas the way that Anne Hathaway did it, it does. And it's like a shock and almost like impressed, but almost like a shock and a fear of like, oh my God, like I do look really pretty. And I don't mean that in a way of like, oh my God, like I'm so much better than everybody else. Like I'm so pretty. I can't show out this pretty, like not in a way that is egotistical. It's in a way where it's like, I don't have the level of confidence to match what is physically on my body. And the idea that I'm going to get attention from this is something that I'm not ready to handle. And that's why, like, I try to do everything I can to just stay in the background and to not put myself out there because I'm just not ready for that. Like, I don't personally feel like I'm at that point where I can handle it. And I think she did it in such an incredible way where, like, you really feel that. And if you can relate to the character, like, I definitely can relate to that. And it's like it touches this vulnerability within you where you're like, yeah, that's a part of, you know, my feelings towards my appearance and clothing choices and everything that I don't want to acknowledge, that I want to compartmentalize for the most part, but it feels really nice to see representation for it. This is just gonna be a short part of the video because I don't want to like get into this, but her best friend of Lily, who is not a good friend in this film, who's very jealous and very threatened by Mia and sort of perceives herself as the main character in their friendship. And that's like very apparent when Mia's like, yeah, I mean, like when my dad died, and she like snaps at her and she's like, hey, I thought you were getting over that. Wasn't that 2 months ago? Which, by the way, if you're grieving, that is not a long time, like at all. Like that's actually an insane thing to say. When I was younger, I had best friends that were like Lily in that I felt completely overpowered by, and I felt like I couldn't stand up for myself against them because they were just like very dominant sort of personalities, and I felt like my personality just kind of got squished in like beside that. And so I find that story very, very relatable, and I'm glad that I can't relate to that anymore. But that was like a lifetime of relatability with those types of friendships where they're not really friendships because they really don't have your back. But the scenes where she finally stands up to Lily, I think, are so beautiful and so real in their portrayal of like how stressful it is to finally like say something, to try to stand up for yourself, knowing that the other person is not going to side with you.
They say that, but it doesn't mean they're wrong. Lily! Just stop it, okay? It's because your hair sucks. Get off mine.
But now that I'm in university and I think I understand a little bit more about the world and the labeling system that goes on, especially for women. There's one clip in the car that I think is very telling and should be analyzed a little bit more. She's like,
I mean, you used to care more about what was inside your head instead of on it. Come on, Mia. That's up. I don't know where you are these days. Now you're turning into an A-crap wannabe. You're morphing into one of them.
The idea that women have to fit into one specific little box, like this idea of like this labeling and policing where you can't do multiple you can't be in multiple things. Like in this case, yeah, the popular girls are mean. I'm not saying they're not, but like the idea that Mia can't do a little bit of makeup and do her hair and have a nice bag and also be smart. And also be, in Lily's case, like an activist. Like that they're like, you cannot dabble in this realm if you want to be labeled and perceived in this realm, and vice versa. And like the idea that like, you know, a girl who's popular and does, you know, hair, makeup, has cute outfits, she can't play sports or something like that. You know what I mean? Like there's oftentimes been this idea that like, oh, if you do your hair, you do your makeup, you know, look like mainstream pretty, that you can't be smart, you can't be valedictorian, you can't be, you know, like that one supersedes the other, or that they literally like clash. And I didn't notice that when I was younger, but watching it the other day, I was like, oh shit, yeah. The next thing I want to focus on is platform. And this is also something I didn't notice nearly as much. I think it was much more elementary in my understanding of it when I was younger. Now I understand it so differently, and it just makes me cry watching it. But there are a few moments where this is talked about before, like the final reveal at the ball. One of them is when they're at the Cliff House, like, little lookout section.
Your father realized that the love he could have for one person, or even two, could not make him forget the love he felt for his country and its people.
And then later on, when Mia says that she's not going to be a princess anymore, and she's telling Lily this, and Lily's saying,
Wanting to rock the world, but having zip power like me, now that's a nightmare. But you, wow. Wow is having the power to affect change, make people listen. How many teenagers have that power? What more of a miracle do you want?
that's so important, and I'm going to get back to this more at the very end when it's her actual speech where she's accepting who she is and her identity and her fate, so to speak. So I'm just going to leave it at that for right now and move on to the scene where she's deciding right before she's going to run away. She's deciding, like,
But I don't think I meant to do this. I would be so afraid that I would disappoint the people of Genovia, and I couldn't bear.
that line about her fear of going into the public sphere and doing public good because she's so afraid to disappoint. Yes, I am tearing up. Because she's so afraid to disappoint the people who need that leader. I feel like that's so real. And I know with what I want to do with my life and with the majors that I'm looking into and the education that I'm obtaining, that I've felt that way a million times, where I feel like even though this is something I'm so passionate about and I care so deeply about, I still feel like I'm not good enough at trying to go into a field that will enact the change that I hope will help these people. And I mean, I'm assuming that most people who want to go into basically any field, but specifically ones that have to do with public good, I'm assuming they felt this way once or twice. And her changing her mind from letting the fear of disappointing people not hold her back, from the fact that she has a great heart, she genuinely wants to help, like going into that and making that switch, I feel like is so powerful, and is something that so many people just need to hear and need to internalize, because it is so difficult when you see suffering in the world and when you see suffering all around you, to think, what if this person has hope that if I'm in this certain position of power that I can help them, and I do everything I can and it still fails and I let them down? Like, that is such a terrifying thought, and it's such a heartbreaking thought to know that the reason you went into the field you went into was so that people who are in those positions of suffering will not suffer anymore, and that you failed in that instance. Like, that is just the most terrifying, heartbreaking thought. And I think the fact that people feel that shows like the level of responsibility in that they perceive for this role, that they are actively taking that responsibility on. They know what this role entails. They know how much people are relying on them. And it also shows to a level like the goodness of their heart and the fact that they care so much. And those are the people I think that should be going into, public health and social work and political science and law and sociology and anthropology and psychology and all of these super important roles for the well-being of people, When I was in the first semester of college years ago, I recorded the diary entry that she reads from her dad.
I present you with this diary to fill the pages with your special thoughts of your wonderful life.
Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all.
And that is something that I've kept with me my whole life whenever I'm afraid to do something. Anxiety has been a very, very, very big issue in my life, and only recently, a few years ago, has come under control. And when I would be so afraid, that was something that I would go back and watch to try to push through whatever it was. And I think that's just one of the most beautiful scenes in the film. I think there are so many specific tidbits of wisdom that the film presents, and that's definitely one of them. I also think in the scene about her dad giving her the diary, when he's writing about, I'm giving you these pages so that you can write about your beautiful, wonderful life. I mean, I feel like everyone should have a journal, and that kind of explains it. Like, everyone's life is beautiful, wonderful, and unique in its own way. And I think everybody has something so important to say. Everyone has a perspective and experiences that another person doesn't have. No matter how similar their lives are, they're going to feel things differently and perceive things differently. And I think it's so important to like write that down and have that dialogue with yourself and that connection with yourself, because I feel like that's so often just lost in we're so encouraged to like get an education and get a job and then focus all of your time on your job and then get married and then have kids and then focus all your time there, and none of that time is really focused on yourself. It's focused on making money, and then you may not even want to get married. You may not think you found the right person. You may not want to have kids, but you're pressured to do it anyway. And I think if you really just take a step back from that, like, it's so important to, while you're working and while you're getting an education and while you're bettering your life is also going to be bettered by having that connection with yourself and talking with yourself and listening to yourself and figuring out truly who you are, which can only be done when you're having these important conversations with yourself. You're being vulnerable with yourself. That may sound like weird, like, of course you're going to be vulnerable with yourself, it's you. But I feel like sometimes we just don't want to admit stuff to ourselves, or we want to compartmentalize our emotions. We don't want to feel them. It feels like emotional suicide in whatever situation that we're in. And like, I feel like it's just so important to, of course, understand when it's not the right time or when it's not healthy. But I feel like so many of us just don't know ourselves. We don't take that time. We may be too afraid to, or we may feel like if we learn who we are, it's going against what other people's expectations of what we want to do or how we feel is. And I feel like this is such a great reminder to really like focus on bettering your own life, but doing so for the good of others so that you can better other people's lives. You need to have that foundation. You need to have the education. You need to have the heart and soul and courage and mindset and vision. And then you can go out and do great things and help so many other people. Of course, help them along the way, but I just really think that is it's written so well, it's done so well, I swear, I love it. And the second one is even more well written, and it's more layered and complex, and I'm so excited to talk about it. Oh my god. When she gives her speech at the end.
But I'm not so afraid anymore. Then I wondered how I'd feel after abdicating my role as Princess of Genovia. And then I realized how many stupid times a day I use the word I. Probably all I ever do is think about myself. And if I cared about the other 7 billion out there instead of just me, that's probably a much better use of my time. My thoughts and the thoughts of people smarter than me would be much better heard. And just maybe those thoughts could be turned into actions. I choose to be forevermore Princess of Genovia.
I think that's one of the best endings to a film, because you get to see her come full circle from the beginning of the film when she's going to give a speech and she can't talk and she's going to go throw up, versus this where she's now in front of not just a crowd of her peers at school being forced there by the state, by the law, but a crowd of people who are in high-ranking positions in the press, knowing that this, whatever she says, is going to be disseminated everywhere. And she's able to face that fear and the wisdom that she heard from the queen about what her dad felt and why he didn't stay with her mother, about how it's more important to care about the well-being of others, the well-being of the majority, than it is to think about just yourself. I think that's something that also really needs to be internalized. That is such a beautiful full circle moment, and it's such a great way to end this film and to give that very, very, very important message to society of all ages. That's not specific to coming of age. That's just extremely important for the well-being and the good of humanity. And it's something that, especially in a capitalistic mixed market society, is not really promoted, because like, it's basically everyone for themselves. Like, you need to get ahead, everyone's your competition. While that may be so for a economic policy, it's definitely not the way that humanity functions best, and it's not the way that people function best with one another. And all of the goodness that so many people want to see in the world is not going to be accomplished with an all-for-one competitive mentality. But ending it on a cute high note, oh my god, her dress, when I was a kid, I literally thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world, like, in this dress. I want this dress and this outfit and this look and everything so bad, and I thought that when I was in community college, too, like, oh my god, and I thought her and Michael were so cute together, and he kind of looks like a Beatle, and fun fact, he's actually a Coppola. I didn't know that until I looked it up a few years ago. And, like, the foot-popping kiss and the, like, the garden lights going on, it's so gorgeous. And then when she's on the plane, all the speech on the plane is, like, so fascinating to see her, like, transition from, like, point A to point B in her life, right? But I think the tweed suit, like, you can really see how her view of herself and her own confidence has gone up, and how she's now, like, transitioning to this more, like, professional role, but she's coming into it so well. And I think that's so beautiful. Okay, on to Princess Diaries Part 2.